James here. I'm just making a video from my Tesla Model S. We're just driving over to young man in the back's grandparents, and I wanted to test the video making capabilities for our trip up to Scotland, when I'm going to try and document things so that other owners and prospective owners can get a feel for what doing a long journey in a Tesla is like. I originally had a Nissan Leaf for a couple of years, and I thought that was a brilliant car, really enjoyed it. One major problem obviously was it doesn't have a lot of range. So I managed to trade up to a Tesla, which has been a nice bonus, shall we say. And I'm absolutely loving this car, and obviously in this car, the range is a completely different thing. So when I go to Scotland, we're going to drive on the way up. We're going to drive to Leeds, and we're going to stop there for a bit. We should just about be able to make it to Leeds. Probably have to moderate our driving speed somewhat, but we should be able to make it. Then we're going to actually stay the night on the way up, and then head on up to the Highlands of Scotland after that. On the way back, however, we're going to do it in one day, so that's going to be a bit more of a full-on driving day, to say the least. I reckon we ought to be able to do it in about 12 hours, taking a sort of fairly leisurely approach to things, and stopping probably 3 times. Once at Edinburgh, the supercharger there. Once sort of between Edinburgh and Leeds, probably just sort of 20-30 minutes at a motorway service station, stretch our legs, and then we'll stop at Leeds, and then from there we'll head on down to home in Essex, which we should hopefully be able to do in one go again. And obviously I will put the details of the journey up, and I'll sort of document the charging experience along the way and things like that, and hopefully people will find it interesting and informative. Just as a bit of background to myself and my driving history, when I had the Nissan Leaf, I was one of these rather strange people that like to go on really long electric journeys. So the furthest I went was Edinburgh. I took my Nissan Leaf up to Edinburgh, and that was quite a challenge, because at that point the motorway service stations only had one CHAdeMO quick charge point, and half the time they weren't working, although admittedly that's not changed, but there are now often more than one quick charger at the motorway service stations, which does help somewhat, because of course with the Nissan Leaf you've more or less got to stop every time, every service station, otherwise you run out of power. And before that I drove all the way to Newquay from Essex, which was even more of a challenge, because back then there was only one motorway service station with a quick charger in the whole country, at South Mends. So I had to use the Nissan dealerships, which did actually work, believe it or not. It was a bit of a pain, because it sort of limits you on the route that you can take quite a lot, and of course you can only stop there during working hours, so you had to make sure you got from A to B at a fairly sharpish time. And also the other major problem with dealerships, which I don't think people have sort of talk about much when it comes to Nissan Leafs, is you're stopped for a 15-minute quick charge, but if it takes them 10-15 minutes to find the card and unlock the point for you, then, and probably in fact move another Nissan out of the way, their Nissan, so that you can actually use the quick charge bay, then of course your 15-minute stop has become a half an hour stop, but you haven't put in half an hour's worth of electricity. So dealership charging, just for emergencies, I think, is the best solution to that. Obviously things things are quite different in a Tesla. And since I've had this car, I've already done quite a few miles. I've been to the Isle of Man twice, across on the ferry, so that's driving up to Heysham and across and back, and then all the way back down from there. I've driven to South Wales a couple of times, and North Devon, so I do like the old long journeys, but this trip up to Scotland is going to be the longest trip that we've taken the car on that we've taken this car on. And also in summertime we're hoping to go to Rome driving in the Tesla, and that will be quite a fun trip, and I'll make a little video of that as well, so people can see how things go and what it's like charging on the Continental superchargers. The main experience, I know quite a few Model S drivers have already gone over to the Continent, but as far as I know, nobody's actually made a sort of a video of the entire trip, so that'll be a little fun project as well. Enjoying that, looking forward to that in the summer. It should be good fun. Well, we're almost at grandparents' house in Northampton. We've done 80.8 miles and used 24.2 kilowatt hours, so we've used about a third of the battery to go 80 miles, which sort of equates with a total range of about 240 miles, which is, you know, pretty realistic if you don't drive too quickly. Been a nice relaxing drive. I like to drive relatively slowly. I guess that's just a habit from my Nissan Leaf days, where you either drove slowly or you didn't get from A to B. What's interesting is the first part of the journey was the same as the route up to the Leeds supercharger, and although when I first set, so I set the destination to be the Leeds supercharger when we first left, and it was saying that I had to drive slowly to get there, and I'd arrive with 2% range left. By the time we'd passed Cambridge, driving at sort of 55-60 miles an hour, you know, for the most part sort of truck speed, it had changed its mind, and it had now decided that we'd have 12% left when we got to the Leeds supercharger, and I no longer needed to worry about driving slowly. So it just shows you the sort of the difference that driving slowly makes. Anyway, I think that's probably going to be it. Next video I make will probably be the one up to Scotland, which I have to say I'm quite looking forward to. You know, I think part of the reason people drive so fast in other cars is because they're not really enjoying themselves, so they want to get the experience over and done with as soon as possible. But I love driving around, so you know, especially in this car, but actually just generally in any electric car, it's such a nice relaxing experience. I don't feel a massive urge to drive quickly and get it over and done with as soon as possible. Anyway, signing off for now. Right, having reviewed my video from earlier, I've decided that the camera shake was a bit unacceptable, so I've changed the mount of the camera, and hopefully that will cushion out some of those bumps a little bit better. And I've also realised I need to talk up, because I was mumbling a bit and it was difficult to hear me. Anyway, right, I'm just testing the new camera mount. Hopefully it's going to be a lot better than the last one. Also, I'm going to remember to speak up so people can actually hear me. Just doing a few errands before heading off to Scotland. Should be good fun. Awful weather. I hope it's going to be better when we actually get up there, but who knows? I suppose that's the joy of a road trip in early March in the UK. Certainly can't rely on the weather. But to be honest, you can't rely on the weather any time of the year, but you certainly can't rely on it in March. Freaking awful. But oh well, I'm sure it'll be good fun nonetheless. I tell you what, I hope it doesn't rain on the drive up to Scotland, because people don't realise quite how much difference, you know, water on the road makes to rolling resistance. It's huge. like literally take 15-20% more power to get up there than it will if the roads are dry. And then you've got the fact that it's cold as well, although that's actually less important when you're doing a long drive, because the battery warms up to a nice decent temperature pretty quickly, especially when you're on the motorway. What's not so handy about cold, obviously, is if you've got the heating on, which I do, because otherwise the car would steam up and we'd all freeze to death. It does, you know, that obviously is going to use more power when it gets colder. But I found, even when I had my Nissan Leaf, that actually driving when it was cold, doing long distances when it was cold, really wasn't a problem, because, you know, once you'd stopped and quick charged for the first time after about an hour, you know, the battery was at a nice warm temperature, and if anything, having it be colder outside was actually good for the car, because people probably know the Nissan Leaf doesn't have an active thermal management system on the battery, so having the cold air sort of rushing under the car and going through the vents and everything helped to keep the battery cold, so that you could sort of drive and quick charge lots, and it didn't heat up too much anyway.